Yo, what's up guys, and welcome to a new explaining video. And this time I'm going to explain to you guys how I made Wezol Chant. It's our latest release on Spin-In or SPRS, and if you haven't heard it yet, this is what it sounds like. And it's been a while guys. I think my last explaining video is like a month old or something, maybe 1.5 months old. And I think that's a shame because I really enjoy making these explaining videos, but I just really can't prioritize making them in my schedule because there's just other stuff that needs to be done, you know. I need to produce music and, you know, create the next single of Mr. Bell and Wezol. But I think I found a solution because I started a Patreon page, which you can find down in the description. We have to start at the sample because yet again in this track I used a sample from an old disco track. It's called Wezol Chant by the Michael Zager Band. It's from 1979, I think. And it sounds like this. So when I heard this track for the first time on like a disco event or something, I was immediately like, this track has it all. It has all the disco cliches in there. It has the ooh ooh. It has the piano riff, the synth riff, the vocal hook. It even has freaking women on roller skates in the music video. It can't really get more disco than that, I think. What I was really struggling with was to create a transition between the hook right here and the build-up and drop. You want to give the track, of course, a modern twist. You want to give it your own twist. But you also want some of the original track to be in the drop and in the build-up, you know, as glue to not make it two separate tracks, but to keep it as one track. And I was just really struggling with that until I found out that if you listen to the synth line, you can also take like a short stab of that. And that step is what I used to create a transition to the build-up. That step right there is just being used throughout the whole track, you know. It's in the drop right here, it's at the end of each section. And that way you kind of create a connection between the drop and the sample that you are using, you know. Maybe it's cool now to show you guys, before I show the drop and stuff, the different ideas I had before the final idea came about. Okay, pretty cool as well. Okay, well, you can kind of see the process I made when the final melody came about, which is this one. So if we listen to the melody line on its own, you can see that there's a couple of gaps in there. There's this gap right here, and there's also this small gap right here. There's just a perfect space right there for the stab from the original track, this one. But what we also have is a guitar stab, that one. And then also the bass guitar. So I think those guitars right there and that bass guitar really give, they really make the connection between like the drop and a disco vibe. Because if we didn't have those guitars and that chord step from the original, you would just be listening to like an EDM track, you know. You wouldn't really hear something disco-y in the drop. It would just be this, you know. One effect that was really important for those guitar steps was the wah-wah effect. And if you don't know what the wah-wah effect is, it's like an effect that's being used in funk a lot, but also in disco. Yeah, I think it's just best to show you guys. And let's just put a wah-wah effect on there. So that was, yeah, that was just one way to kind of create that disco feel in the drop. So as you can see right here, there's a sub bass, 2 main basses, and 2 leads going on. And if we just listen to the separate VSTs, so all those sounds together make up for the complete sound. So the sub bass is actually silent, which is kind of weird because I don't really use silent that much anymore. I think there's just better VSTs out there with more options. I think this is a really old patch that I made some time ago. Then we have main bass 1, which is actually a bass that I created for my remix on Mogwai's Hold On. Then we have Serum right here, which is just a really standard patch as well, just to fill the bass out. And then we have the main and most important sound of the drop sound, and that is main lead 1. And it is Harmor again, yet again. Harmor is just my go-to plugin nowadays for special sounds, and I think this sound is just really awesome. Yeah, I'll go into more detail about how I create sounds in Harmor in like a whole other explaining video. But what I did right here is I threw a sample in there, synth step 209. And if we just go to that sound, 209. So that's this sound right here. But if we listen to the sound, it doesn't sound like this sound at all. So what I did is I changed the harmonic structure of that sample to make it sound like I wanted it to sound. So I just made a lot of changes right here till I got the sound that I was happy with. What is kind of annoying about Harmor is that when you throw a sample in there, it becomes mono. But luckily, you can change that in a lot of different ways. You can add like another instance of that sample in the A part right here, and then you can set it to sides. But what you can also do is you can give it some unison, and you can just drag this one up slightly or a lot to give it like a chorus kind of effect, and that's also what's making it stereo. So if we just look at the stereo imager right here, you can see there's some stereo information going on there. But what's also cool is that if you put the lead synth in mono, it still sounds good, although it's pretty much in mono right now. That's just something you really have to pay attention to when you're creating something with Harmor. So this second sound right here is just for some high-end, I think. It's also for some stereo, as you can see right here. There you can see how much that second lead is doing for the stereo spectrum. Next up, the drums. And as you can see up here, I rendered all the drums out, at least almost all the drums, to save some CPU power. But luckily, I still have all the separate things right here. So a thing that I do with my Patreon account is you have different tiers, you know, and I was thinking that it might be cool to give out the drum samples of each explaining video track to those people. And yeah, you can just go to my Patreon page and yeah, it should all speak for itself. So if we just listen to the drum loop right here, it's pretty standard, but then there's that part, which is kind of weird, right? It's this this bit of samples right here, along with this right here. The clap and the hi-hats and stuff, that's not really that interesting, I think. If we look at the clap, there's just a small offset on one of the claps, just to give it like a sketchy disco feel. The open hi-hat is also really basic. Closed hi-hats, same, nothing interesting going on. It's just a loop. Percussion, just a loop. But that small bit right there, I had to create that because when I was making the drop, I noticed that there was like a small gap there. You know, it was missing something. So we have that. So that together with this is what's creating that sound, and it's kind of like the same thing I did with my remix on Crazy. It's just there to fill it up, you know. Yeah, I think that's it for this track, guys. If you like the track and if you haven't bought it yet or supported it or added it to your playlist on Spotify, please consider doing so. You would really help us to, you know, get higher in the charts and stuff. So yeah, I hope you had fun. I hope you had a great time watching this video, and I hope to see you again in another video.